more businesses are adapting now. We're seeing restaurants moving into takeaway, jumping on the delivery services, all of that. What's a very, I suppose, general tip that you could give for an SME owner, given the current environment? What should they be doing now?
Well, I say during these environments, you've got to be finding out what everybody else does, because like it's easy for me to say innovate, but it's not that easy to innovate. And a lot of us, and you've got to have a really clear mind to innovate. And, to some extent, you've got to be sitting on top of the Himalayan mountains, and you're in Zen position. You can actually sit there and meditate a little bit, and then you might get some innovative ideas. You can't do it whilst you're getting crushed and someone's got you in a headlock and your landlord's saying, I need some rent and all that sort of stuff, and your staff are running away. So it's not that easy to innovate, even though we should. So a good way to innovate is to copy others. There's very few original ideas in the world. So I would say to people in our environment, if you can't innovate yourself, similar to, as you say, small businesses are now doing with takeaway, etc., and or delivery, if you can't innovate, have a look at what everyone else is doing. Go and experience what other people are doing. And I don't mean you should be wandering outside your neighborhood, but within your own neighborhood, you'll see innovations, and then read about it. Listen to this sorts of conversation. It's a time to be digesting and consuming as much digital talkback as you possibly can. I don't mean radio. I mean podcasts. I mean this sort of digital expression that you and I are talking about now, this type of work, anything they're doing in America, what are they doing in England, and just really dive into your industry and find out what people are doing, and then say, now, what can I borrow from that? There's nothing wrong with borrowing other people's ideas, especially if you're under the pump. You've got to give yourself an hour a day where you sit down and do this. Maybe the first thing you do in the morning, you get up, you go for a walk or take your dog for a walk or do exercise at home, however you're sort of doing exercise. Then sit down, and I always say to people, do some learning. Well, the learning we should be doing right now is getting on the digital mediums, assuming your NBN's working, but get on the digital mediums and start looking at what everybody's doing and start to work out what is good for me. Don't be in a hurry. Don't expect it to happen and for the white light to come on and just, at that moment. It might take you a week or two. But over time, you will come up with these innovations yourself. And all of it's going to be around using digital mediums like this and being in contact with your customer and building your brand. The other day, I talked on my podcast to a number of guys. I'm releasing in, I think it's April, 4 podcasts where I speak to 4 of Australia's most famous fighters. One is currently the UFC world champion, an Australian guy, Eastern State guy. And the other 3 are champion boxers. And I talked to them about the business of boxing. And of course, they can't fight at the moment because you can't be in contact, there can't be a crowd, etc. So I've asked each one of these guys, what are they doing right now? And each one of them, they're all smart young guys, and no wonder they're smart because they're at the top of the tree in their own game. They're all saying this about brand building. Right now, they're trying to build their brand. So when they have the next fight on, everyone knows about their brand. They know what the messaging is around their brand and what they stand for. And as a result of that, people will do pay-per-view, which is how these guys make their money, and or turn up to the event when it eventually comes back. So these are fighters in the business of fighting who are doing brand building during this period when they are pretty much put into hibernation. They are totally closed down because they cannot perform. Yet they've got to keep their sponsors happy and they've got to keep their fans happy because that's where the revenue is. So what they're doing is a building brand. They're talking to them on Instagram. They're talking to them through Facebook. They are calling out and shouting out their sponsors as much as they possibly can. They are continually expressing their own personal story about why they do what they do. They are showing you what they're doing today. They're saying, this is my workout from 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. And there's stuff that interests us. They're doing podcasts with someone like me. Like one guy just finished doing a podcast with Joe Rogan. He flew back to Australia and did a podcast here in Australia with me. He's the UFC guy. So his name's Alex Volkanovski. Like he is the current featherweight UFC champion of the world. We don't get many champions of the world in Australia UFC. And it's amazing. He's only 25 or 26, how bright these individuals are. And so if you're in business, you can learn from these fighters and go and listen to podcasts. Just try and get inspiration wherever you can.
Yeah, excellent. I like the innovative there. And you touched on a passion of mine, Mark, which is around your brand.
Branding is critical.
And particularly if you're going to do new things like podcasts, start building start building that brand, if you're going to experiment on live broadcast, I would encourage people, if you're taking your audience on that journey, make sure that you engage with them.
Correct. And you do a good job of that. You do a good job of that, Dino. And like,
thanks,
here's an example. You've actually, we're mates, but you've got me into your podcast this broadcast that you're doing here. And so you got two people, you're asking me questions about brokers and or other people, small businesses. And what you're going to do is you're going to use this content to build your brand. And I'm cool. I'm happy with that because I like you and I like our industry for that matter. And you do a lot of good things for our industry. So, but that's, I mean, if anyone's listening, here's an example of what you do. Exactly what Dino's doing now. I do that with famous fighters in my podcast, The Mentor. I get famous fighters on. I mean, I try to draw in a crowd. I try to bring something interesting to the audience. And if you're, I don't care what business you're in, if you want to start to do a little podcast, do it. It doesn't matter if 20 people listen to you. If it doesn't cost you any money, and it's easy to do these days with, with all the technology, it's not that difficult. And you'll get good at it. My podcast, originally when I started my podcast, I might have had 20 people listen to me. I did it 5 years ago. Admittedly, I have a head start on most people because I've been on television, but you don't have to have 6 or 7 million downloads. I mean, you can have a couple of thousand downloads and that's probably enough. And the more you talk about what you do, the more you become clear on what you do because you're practicing it all the time. And when you step back and you listen to what you just said, you think, so wait a minute, I can improve on that. I can refine it. So you're prosecuting your own profile and your own brand. And I think that's very helpful. It's better than just sitting there talking about it to yourself in your head. I mean, I think this is very powerful for everybody to talk about what they do, like you just did then about what you do. And the more we talk about what we do, the better we get at it, the more refined we can in terms about messaging, how we actually message what we do and how we message what our story is. The more responses and reactions we can read and we can see what people actually like us to say, what they like to hear and read about us. As a result, then you can build up your brand because that is your brand.
Spot on. Mark, to finish off on, I had one last question. We see so many people working remotely now for obvious reasons. Best thing that you like to do when you're spending time at home?
I shouldn't say eating, but because it's not the best thing I like to do because I tend to be a snack in the fridge. But this might sound a bit odd, but I have a skipping rope and or some light weights, and I continually, every time I need a break, I just go and skip a bit and or hit the light weights. I put a shirt on just for you, but normally I got a t-shirt, and I got other stuff underneath, so I don't have a suit on. So
I won't stand up.
Don't stand up. I hope you got something on. And
I do.
And what I do is I exercise in between. So every hour or so, I do a bit of exercise. So I get a day. I'm actually getting in more exercise now than I would ordinarily get in when I just do an hour in the morning. So I'm getting exercise in for 10 minutes every hour or so. And it's easy to do because I have a break every hour. So I just do one specific thing. So I tend to exercise much more when I'm doing this sort of remote working. I also, as I said earlier, when I do what I profess, I actually read a lot of stuff. I'm doing a lot of reading. I'm actually tuning into lots of podcasts. I'm tuning in lots of digital mediums to find out what people are saying. And I'm trying to get my head around all the government initiatives and how they all work. So that's what I tend to do when I'm working remotely. Look, I don't want to do it forever. I don't really enjoy it. I prefer to be seeing people and to be around people. I like to be able to walk across the road to the coffee shop and see people and talk to people and just say hello. But I'm lucky. I've got a pet. I've got a dog. He's always hanging around me, and I do my exercise, and and I actually enjoy these sorts of conversations. These are cool. It's fun to be able to have a conversation too. Otherwise, I would just be ferreting away down there on my desk and pushing my pen and or using my fingertips to tap away.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. These are great. So on that note, Mark, thanks so much for the time again today. It's good to have a chat, given we couldn't catch up last year through Brokers Day, but hopefully if this all settles down, we can plan something for this August. But Mark, thank you very much again, mate.
All the best to you, mate. Good on you, Dino.
Wonderful. And for everyone watching, as always, stay strong, continue to stay safe and do the right thing.
Keep Australia strong. Keep Australia strong.